Joining us at Post 9, Recode managing editor and CNBC contributor, Ed Lee. Ed, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
We've just heard more about sort of the calls from lawmakers and other officials in the UK regarding Facebook and this Cambridge Analytica data scandal. I want to make sure I actually have this right, because I think the list continues to grow. That's in the UK. Here in the US, FTC opens an investigation. We've got 37 state attorneys general looking for explanations, 3 congressional committees demanding Zuckerberg come and testify in person. What more could go wrong here?
Well, so the big sort of liability here is that if Congress isn't satisfied with what the steps Facebook has taken to curb this sort of data theft or this sort of data exploitation, they're going to come in and regulate. They're going to actually look at the EU and say, look at what they're doing. Let's adopt a similar model, which would be unusual for Congress to do. It would also sort of signal sort of this big sort of political wave against these tech companies, specifically social media like Facebook. And I think there is a lot of sort of political will to sort of look closer at these companies and make sure they're not doing things in a way that's untoward. We're in an information war right now, right? So the 80s and 90s, we had this Cold War. Now we're in an information war, and people's data, like those are the weapons, right? And so if you think about Facebook, you have to think of it as sort of like, I'm not saying they're defense contractors, but they hold important things that could affect the country in really significant ways. So I think that is what's underlying a lot of it. That's a concern, that is a fear. Mark Zuckerberg, he hasn't really always been great at public speaking. He doesn't like talking to people. He doesn't like doing public speaking things. This is one of those moments, this leadership crisis moments, where if he doesn't really step up, it could be bad for the country.
I was going to ask you what the most legitimate reason for not appearing in front of this parliamentary committee is. It because he's afraid of messing up, saying something he didn't mean to say?
So he had an interview with my boss, Kara Swisher, after the whole scandal. He said some very revealing things, I think. And this is sort of part and parcel of his personality, which is this. He said, when we asked him, would you testify? Would you go in front of Congress and talk about what happened? He goes, yeah, sure, if I'm the right person. That was very revealing. Like, how are you not the right person? You're the CEO, you're the founder, you're the controlling shareholder. Everything stops with you, right? So I think he approached it from the sense of, well, I don't know every little detail. That might be fine. So what you do is you study, right? You talk to your CTO, you talk to your staff and say, I want to make sure I understand this top to bottom. But the reason why he has to testify is because he's the one who makes the decisions. And I think Zuckerberg is the liability in that way, right? I mean, the stock's been going up and down. I think since the Cambridge scandal, it took a huge dip, and it's sort of trying to find where it's supposed to be. I'd argue what you're seeing in the marketplace right now is the Zuckerberg discount, right? I mean, if he's going to run the company the way he wants to run it without sort of the same sense of consequence that other CEOs might have, it's always going to trade lower, right? Because you don't know where he wants to be with this. He's not a sort of in-front person necessarily. And, you know, that's the big risk factor. That's the big X factor in terms of what is going on with this company.
Should he be doing more? Should the company be doing more to get ahead of this issue, especially given the fact that it seems to be snowballing so aggressively?
So yes, I think they should be doing more. They've made some steps already. They made announcements about they will curb how data can be collected, how third parties can collect data, but they didn't go into how that data can be used, right? And I think that is a big part of this in terms of, well, fine, you're limiting how the data can be collected, but it could still be exploited or used in very similar ways from what we saw with Cambridge Analytica and other third parties as well. So they haven't done enough to address those issues. The other issue too is that they said in their note that, oh, we were informed years ago about Cambridge Analytica sort of getting data sort of in a way that was not complying with their policies. We asked them to delete it. Well, why didn't you tell the world that, guess what, there are these third parties that were using your data? So again, transparency has been an issue with them. How the data is going to be used has not been addressed. So if I'm Congress, I would want to know what you're going to do for those things. Because if you're not going to address those issues, I'm going to step in and say, you know what, let's adopt stricter measures on how you use that.
Although it's not clear that regulation would necessarily even hurt them. I mean, in a sense, couldn't you make an argument that if they took the regulation on, it might even help them?
That it would legitimize.
It would legitimize and make people feel more comfortable with the platform to the extent that anybody actually is thinking about really leaving it? So
Sheryl Sandberg, in subsequent interviews, the CEO, she had sort of said, like, you know, we are open to regulation if it makes sense, if it's right. So I think there's definitely sort of a bridge there, right? In terms of, yes, we could be open to that. It might legitimize their operations. The difficulty with Facebook and also with Google, any online advertising, is that so much of it is data-driven, right? And it's long-tail advertising. These are not like, you know, $5 million, $10 million campaigns from major brand marketers. These are $100,000, $5,000, $10,000 campaigns from like app developers and startups, right, and other small businesses. And that's the bulk of their revenue, and it's just hard to keep track of that stuff. So unless, Facebook employs some of the smartest people in the world with great sense of software, they should develop a way to sort of monitor that better. That's the other part of this in terms of regulation. It isn't so much how the data is used as much as you are responsible for tracking and monitoring, making sure it's used the right way. Again, I don't see enough, that gap has not been filled yet. I haven't seen Facebook come forward and say, we're going to take a look at how that happens, instead of doing like third-party audits after the fact, right? You want to get ahead of it and sort of see it before it happens or as it's happening.
Right.
Certainly stokes more questions.
Right.
I have a feeling we'll be talking to you more about this in the coming days and coming weeks. Ed Lee from Recode, thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.